Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that, well, it probably curls up on a lot of our laps, actually.
Yeah.
The emotional world of cats.
Yeah.
We often think of them as really independent creatures, sort of masters of their own destiny.
Aloof, almost.
Right, aloof. But today, we're diving into the research and the observations, suggesting there's actually a lot more going on there.
Definitely. Things like deep bonds, maybe even experiencing loss and missing their humans.
Missing their families, exactly.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. Our understanding is really, well, it's taken some big leaps lately.
You think so?
I do. For such a long time, the view is pretty much, solitary hunter, instinct-driven.
Right.
But if you look at the history, how we even got connected with cats, it starts to look a bit more complicated.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking like 9,000 years ago, right? Fertile Crescent.
That's the time frame, yeah. Early farming, grain stores.
Attracted rodent.
Which attracted wild cats. It was, well, convenient for everyone.
A win-win. And it's interesting because unlike dogs, they weren't really selectively bred for jobs in the same way.
Exactly. It's often said they sort of domesticated themselves.
Right. Which maybe explains that independent streak.
It's part of their nature, for sure. But, and this is key, that independence doesn't automatically mean they're, emotionally detached.
That's a really important point. Independence versus detachment.
Yeah. And actually, when we look at their brains, the basic structures, there are some pretty striking similarities to other mammals, including us.
In how they might process feelings.
Potentially, yes.
Okay, so let's get into that. The hardware, so to speak. What parts of the cat brain are we talking about here?
Well, cats have structures like the amygdala.
Okay, involved in fear, emotional memory.
Right, and the hippocampus, crucial for memory formation. Then there's the prefrontal cortex, which handles more complex stuff, maybe regulating emotions.
And these are similar to what we have.
Similar structures are found in us, and other mammals that we know experience things like pleasure, fear, anxiety, maybe even grief.
So the basic neurological toolkit seems to be there.
It suggests the capacity is there, yes.
Interesting. Okay, so the physical potential exists.
Yeah.
But what's the proof they actually use it in ways that look like emotions?
Right, that's the key question. And attachment studies give us some really compelling clues.
Like the work by Dr. Kristen Vitale at Oregon State.
Exactly that work. Her team looked really closely at how cats behave when they're reunited with their caregivers after, being separated for a short time.
Okay, and what did those reunions show? Because, I think a lot of people think their cat wouldn't even notice if they left the room.
Yeah, well, what Vitale's study found was pretty significant. A really large number of the cats showed what's called secure attachment.
Secure attachment. What does that look like in a cat?
It means when the owner came back, the cat sought contact, maybe rubbed or wanted attention. But then, pretty quickly, they relaxed and started exploring again, kind of using the owner as a safe home base.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's the same basic pattern you see in dogs and even human babies who feel secure with their caregiver.
So it really challenged that old idea of cats just being indifferent.
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
It showed they can form genuine bonds.
That's a real eye-opener. So it's not just us projecting feelings onto them. There's a measurable behavior there.
Precisely. And then you have all the everyday stuff, right? Outside of controlled studies.
What kind of things?
Well, think about how many cats follow their owners from room to room, like a little shadow.
Oh, definitely. Mine does that all the time.
Or insists on sleeping on the bed, maybe right by your head.
My personal purring alarm clock, yes. And the greetings. Mine acts like I've been gone for weeks when I just went to get the mail. The whole concert of meows.
Exactly. Those vocalizations upon return. And there's other research, too, from the University of Tokyo.
What did they find?
They discovered that cats can actually tell their owner's voice apart from a stranger's voice, and they react differently.
So it's not just a human voice means food might happen.
It seems to be more than that. It suggests real cognitive recognition, maybe even an emotional element. They know who is talking.
Wow. Recognizing a specific person, that implies a pretty deep connection. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to something maybe tougher. Grief. Many of us think we've seen our cats mourn, maybe after losing another pet. But is there actual science on this?
There's growing evidence, yes. It's a sensitive area, obviously. But way back in 1996, the ASPCA did a study.
Okay, what did that involve?
They looked at cats' behavior changes after another companion animal in the house died.
And what did they see?
A whole range of things. Decreased appetite was common, changes in vocalization, maybe more meowing or quieter, altered sleep patterns, and shifts in social behavior too. Some cats got really withdrawn, hid more. Others became super clingy, almost like they were seeking comfort.
That sounds very familiar to anyone who's been through that with multiple pets.
It resonates, definitely. And it's not just old research. Much more recently, 2024, a study from Milan, Italy.
Published in Animals, I think.
That's the one. It basically reinforced those earlier findings. They saw behavioral changes consistent with mourning, lasting for days or even weeks after a bonded animal friend died.
Similar patterns again. Eating, sleeping.
Yes, eating, sleeping habits changing, activity levels shifting. The owners reported these consistent patterns.
And it's not just about losing other animals, is it? What happens when a cat loses their main human?
That's a crucial question. And yes, research suggests it hits them hard too. There was a piece in People magazine, May 2025.
Right, I saw that, mentioning Oakland University research.
Exactly. They looked at stress behaviors in cats after losing either a human family member or another bonded pet, surveyed like over 500 households.
And what behaviors stood out?
Things like searching, physically looking for the person or pet, lethargy, just seeming down, changes in appetite again, and often an increased need for affection from remaining family members.
It really highlights how significant that bond is. Losing a caregiver is a major event for them.
It absolutely seems to be.
It's quite touching, isn't it? And kind of heartbreaking. You see these stories online too, don't you? Anecdotes on Reddit or TikTok.
Oh, constantly. People sharing videos or stories. A cat sitting by an empty bed, or maybe carrying around something that belonged to the person who's gone.
Like a slipper or something.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we have to be a little careful, right? Not to over-anthropomorphize, not to just map human grief directly onto them.
Good point. Avoid projecting too much.
But when you see such consistent patterns of behavior across so many cats, it strongly suggests they're experiencing something significant. A real response to the absence of that bonded individual.
So maybe they don't grasp death like we do, abstractly.
Probably not in the same conceptual way.
But they absolutely know someone important is gone. And that absence causes distress.
Exactly. Their world has changed, their social structure is disrupted, and they react. And that reaction looks a lot like emotional upset.
Which is why it's so important for us, as their caregivers, to recognize the signs.
Absolutely. We need to know what to look for.
So what are those key things? If you suspect your cat might be grieving, what should you watch out for?
Well, changes in eating are a big one. Often eating less, but sometimes stress can make them eat more, interestingly.
Okay. Yeah.
Vocalization's changing. More meowing, maybe louder, more insistent meows, or even yowling.
Right. And affection levels.
That can go either way. Some become super needy, constantly wanting attention, wanting to be held or petted.
Clingy.
Very clingy. Others do the opposite, withdraw, hide under the bed, become less interactive.
Any other major signs?
Yes, and this is a really common stress indicator in cats generally. Changes in litter box habits. So urinating or defecating outside the box.
Ah, okay. Inappropriate elimination. That's often a sign something's wrong.
It definitely signals stress or distress, yeah.
So, okay, say you notice some of these things in your cat after a loss. What can you actually do to help them?
The number one thing is trying to maintain their routine as much as possible.
Stability. Cats like routine.
They thrive on predictability, so keeping feeding times, play times, even just your general household rhythm consistent can be really comforting.
Makes sense.
What else?
Offering items with familiar scents can help. If they lost another animal companion, maybe a blanket they shared. If they lost a human, perhaps an unlaundered piece of clothing. That familiar smell can be soothing.
Like a comfort object.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, just spending extra quality time with them. Gentle, petting, quiet company if they seem receptive to it. Don't force interaction if they're withdrawn, but be available.
Maybe some gentle play or new enrichment.
Yeah, sometimes introducing a new stimulating toy or maybe a new climbing tree can provide a bit of a positive distraction, help redirect their focus gently. And when does it become serious enough that you should maybe call the vet?
Well, if the changes are really drastic, like if the cat stops eating almost entirely, or the hiding is constant, or the inappropriate elimination is persistent.
Or if it just goes on for a really long time, weeks and weeks.
Exactly. If it persists for an extended period, or if you're just really worried about their overall well-being, definitely consult your vet.
Why the vet first?
to rule out any underlying medical problems. Sometimes behavioral changes can stem from illness.
Good point.
And if it does seem purely behavioral, the vet might suggest talking to a veterinary behaviorist.
Okay, what can they do?
They can offer much more specific, tailored strategies, maybe behavioral modification techniques. In some severe cases, they might even discuss anti-anxiety medication to help the cat cope.
So there are options if it gets really bad.
There are. But the foundation is always patience and compassion from the owner, giving them time.
Absolutely. Now, it's not just about permanent loss, is it? Our cats react even when we just leave for the day, right? We talk about separation anxiety in dogs all the time. But what about cats? Do they get separation anxiety too?
It seems they can, yes. Though maybe their signs aren't always as dramatic or obvious as some dogs.
Like chewing the furniture or barking nonstop.
Right. Cats might show it more subtly. Maybe they stop eating while you're gone, or they might overgroom themselves, licking spots raw.
Oh, interesting. Excessive grooming is a stress sign.
Yes. Or maybe they become much more vocal only when left alone. And then think about the flip side, how they greet you when you get back.
The enthusiastic greetings, the chirps, the figure eights around your ankles.
All that definitely suggests they noticed you were gone and are pretty happy you're back.
Yeah, you feel welcomed. It's interesting, though. I remember reading about a UK study, University of Lincoln, I think.
Yes.
They found cats do react to owner absence, but maybe in quieter ways than dogs.
That sounds right. And the key takeaway from studies like that is crucial. A difference in how they express attachment doesn't mean a lack of attachment.
So just because they aren't freaking out doesn't mean they don't care.
Exactly. They might just be more reserved, internal, but they're still tuned in to us being there or not being there.
And the Japanese study you mentioned earlier about voice recognition.
Published in Animal Cognition, yeah.
That adds another layer, doesn't it? Not just recognizing our voice,
but also picking up on the emotional tone of our voice. They respond more positively to their owner's voice, especially a pleasant tone, compared to a stranger's.
That's incredible. They're really listening, not just hearing.
It really paints a picture of a much more emotionally aware creature than maybe we've traditionally thought.
Yeah, and it makes you think about, history and culture, too. Cats have often held these special, almost mystical roles.
Absolutely. Think ancient Egypt, the goddess Bastet. Cats were revered, protected.
Or Norse mythology. Freya's chariot pulled by cats.
Right. And in Japan, the mannequin echo, the beckoning cat, symbol of good fortune.
It feels like across different times and places, there's been this underlying sense that cats have. I don't know, some kind of deeper awareness or emotional depth.
It does seem that way. These cultural views, combined with the science we're now getting, and just the sheer volume of personal experiences people share.
It all points towards a shift in understanding.
Definitely. We're moving past that simple, solitary hunter label. We're starting to see them more as sentient beings, capable of really strong bonds, feeling loss, experiencing a whole range of emotions.
So that old myth, the cool, aloof, unfeeling cat, it's really starting to crumble, isn't it?
I think it is. Science, observation, personal stories, they're all sort of converging. They show us cats have rich emotional lives. They form deep attachments. They show signs of grief. They notice when we're gone and seem glad when we return. They express it all in their own cat-like ways, sometimes subtle ways.
So what's the big takeaway here for us, for people listening who love cats or live with them?
I think it's about acknowledgement, recognizing their emotional world. When we do that, we can build deeper, more meaningful relationships with them.
How so?
We can learn to read their signals better, even the subtle ones. We can respond with more empathy, especially if they're going through something stressful, like a loss or a big change.
Seeing them less as just independent pets and more as...
Yes, as emotional companions. Beings who are really woven into the fabric of our lives, sharing our homes, our routines, and capable of experiencing their own joys and sorrows.
That really is a profound way to think about them. So maybe for you listening, it's worth taking a moment. Think about your own cat. What little things do they do? What subtle cues might you have seen that hint at that deeper emotional connection? Maybe something you didn't fully appreciate before.
Yeah. It seems there's this whole intricate world of feline feeling just waiting for us to pay closer attention.